Awesome. Thanks for inviting me to your conference. Pleasure to be here. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Constable Desmond. I'm a school liaison officer with the Campbell RCMP detachment. I've been a school liaison officer for 4 years now, 4 school years. So, you guys are in grade 4, 5 right now? Yeah. Chances are when I first started this position, I was maybe coming into your kindergarten classes, or you may have seen me when you were all the way back in kindergarten. So it's tough to remember that far back, even for an old guy like myself. So, a little bit about me. I've got 19 years as a police officer. My very first posting was all the way up in the northeast corner of the province in a little town called Dawson Creek, not where the TV show was. After Dawson Creek, I came down to Vancouver Island. I spent about seven and a half years in Lake Cowichan. Lake Cowichan is a very nice little lake community on the island. I was very happy to get away from wintry days just like this one out that you see today. Thankfully, this is not very common, right? But we do feel like it's kind of winter out. And I've been here in Campbell River for about 6 years now. I've got 2 teenage daughters at home. One of them still considered a teenager. She's 18, young adult, and my youngest daughter is 15. They are probably more versed in internet and social media apps than I am. The extent of my social media use extends to Facebook. I don't use Instagram and I don't use Snapchat. As a police officer, some of my experiences though with schools and in the classrooms are that young people like you guys are now just kind of getting into that. If you're not already well versed in it, you're probably at least aware of some of these social media apps that are out there, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about some internet safety today. Some of it's going to be very basic, some of it you might already know, and some stuff you might be surprised to hear. Let me start off by asking you guys, and it's going to be a little interactive. So, because I know it's really tough to sit and listen to somebody talking for probably more than 5 minutes, but we're going to be here for probably close to 45 minutes. But I'm going to ask you guys questions throughout the morning, and if you have an answer, all I ask, of course, just like your teacher just said, is just raise your hand. I'll try to get to everybody. So, first of all, let me ask you a question in regards to what sort of devices and what sort of experiences you guys are having right now at your age. Who here has their own cell phone? Raise your hand. Okay, so maybe half. Who here, if you don't have a cell phone, do you use another sort of device, either a tablet, a laptop, or a desktop computer?
Huge. Just the half.
Yeah, so that's quite a few. So most of you in one way, shape, or form have either a cell phone or a device of some sort, right? It's almost a requirement these days. You need to have access to the internet for various school projects and connecting with friends and family. That's okay. Technology's come a long way. So for those of you who have your own cell phone, do you all have your own phone number? Who has your own phone number attached to your phone? Yeah, okay, so a few of you. For those of you who don't have your own phone number, you just run off Wi-Fi? You don't have a data plan? Is that kind of the way you work it? Yeah? So you don't have data, but you run off Wi-Fi, whether it be at home or at school? Fair enough. I just want to get a kind of an idea of how much use you guys are and what sort of ways you're accessing the internet. So, for those of you who actually for all of you, as far as the cell phone goes, do you think that it's more of a right to have a cell phone, or do you think it's more of a privilege? What do you think?
I think it's privilege.
A privilege? Anybody else?
Privilege.
Privilege?
Privilege. 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 Privilege.
I think you're right. It's very important these days, obviously, to have access to the internet, like I said earlier. But when we have access to a cell phones cost money, right? I mean, they cost money to buy in the first place. They cost money to maintain. They cost money to access services, right? So sometimes there's monthly costs that are associated with that cell phone, right? So if you have a phone number, you have to pay a monthly fee. If that phone number has access to data, which gives you access to the internet anywhere sort of thing, that costs money, right? So if we think of cell phones as something that is more of a privilege than a right, how important do you think that it is to be responsible for that phone? How important?
50%.
50% responsible? So you're responsible for 50% of it? Who would the other 50% be?
Like your family members.
Okay, so maybe parent? What do you think?
95% of it is me because it's my phone.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. Yeah,
I would probably say around the same as him.
95-ish.
Yeah, a 95.
Anybody have any other numbers?
Mine probably like 99 and the rest is
99.
my parents being able to pay.
I tend to think you're probably right. It's mostly your responsibility if you have a phone. Yes, sometimes parents have a responsibility for it as well, but for the most part, you're responsible if you're carrying it around for the safety of that phone, right? You're responsible for not losing it. How many of you are responsible for paying for some of that phone?
Oh.
Hands up. One person? You pay a little bit? Can I ask how much you pay?
I get an allowance and I pay 5% of my allowance towards the phone.
I think that's really important. And
That's really good.
That's really commendable, actually.
Yeah.
Especially for young people your age. Some of you probably have little jobs. Some of you get an allowance. But let's face it, things are expensive, and it's important to have that feeling of responsibility. I'm not just saying that you're not responsible if you're not paying for it. I'm just saying it makes you think a little bit more carefully about being responsible, right, when you are paying for something. So that's one of the reasons actually why my 15-year-old daughter does not have a phone number. She just uses Wi-Fi. She has an iPhone 7. It was a hand-me-down. And she just uses Wi-Fi because she doesn't want to be stuck with that financial responsibility every month. And it could be anywhere upwards, $50 to $100 a month for that cell phone, right? If you have a phone number and data. She doesn't want that responsibility. I suspect that may change in the next year or two. She's a few years older than you guys, but it's something to think of, right? She also has a part-time job, so she probably would be able to pay for it if she wanted to, but she's not quite there yet.
Same with my phone. My phone's a hand-me-down from my sister.
Yeah, and that's important because it's important to keep the cost down, right? Especially with kids your age. So that's good to know. How many of you that have phones and have devices, so laptops or tablets, desktop computers, what sort of things do you use them for? Give me an example of something you use it for.
Calling your friends.
So, phone calls. What else?
Going on YouTube.
YouTube. Yes.
Looking at stuff online.
Okay. So just basically internet research kind of thing.
And then Amazon and stuff, looking at ordering something.
Ah, yeah. Shopping. That's a really popular use. That one?
TikTok.
Sorry?
Going on TikTok.
TikTok. Right. So TikTok, obviously, does everybody know what TikTok is? Yeah. Short little videos. Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about that. Gaming. Yeah, and gaming's a big one, right? Gaming's a big one, not just for kids, but for adults too, right? Lots of online gaming for your device. Yeah, what else?
I use it it was fun for schoolwork when we were only homeschooling.
Yeah, really important, right? For research and that kind of stuff, for schooling. So educational purposes, yeah. What else?
I don't do it, but people can use Facebook
Right.
share what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Extremely popular, right? All these social media apps, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, right? Those are the three big ones right now. How many of you are using Facebook? Probably the teachers and myself.
Yeah.
So that's okay. Young people these days aren't really going on to Facebook, but it's important to know that Facebook and Instagram are connected, right? One company owns the other one. They merged a little while ago. So, Instagram, how many Instagram users have we got here? A handful. How many Snapchat people? Handful. Yeah. So, what do you think the actual age is for Snapchat? How old do you have to be to use it?
12 and over. I think like 13.
13. 13 to 17, you're able to use Snapchat, but you also need parental agreement, right? So think about that. I won't put you on the spot. You guys aren't 13 yet, right? You're not either.
I wish.
So you're not quite 13. So that means Snapchat technically should be off limits, right? Nonetheless, no judging, but something to keep in mind. They say that there's a reason why. Why do you think?
Find the location.
Papa?
Sorry?
Papa?
What's that?
It's, I forgot what it stands for, but it stands for something. Children and privacy.
Okay. Gotcha. Oh, FOIPA? That one? Freedom of Information Privacy Act?
Yeah, there's also that too.
Oh, okay.
COIPA is the state's one. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
The reason it's rated that is because there could be inappropriate things and people could ask you private things.
Right. Yes. So even though that app of Snapchat is not actually meant for inappropriate things, sometimes the use is inappropriate. And that's the reason why they want to make sure that anybody 13 to 17 has parental knowledge and consent to that. So if you know that Snapchat has the possibility of having some inappropriate content, how does that change the way you use it?
You could be more careful on it and watch what buttons you're clicking.
Be more careful on it, watch what buttons are clicking. What else?
Watch the new friend requests.
Yeah,
They are.
absolutely. Why is that important?
Because you just need to know who you're talking to.
You need to know who you're talking to. Is it possible that you could have somebody on your Snapchat that you don't know? Is it possible?
Yes, very close.
So ask yourself, those of you who are using Snapchat, ask yourself if everybody you know on there, you actually know. And I don't mean, oh yeah, I've been friends with them from online gaming for 5 years, I know them. I mean somebody you know. Like you've seen, you've met physically. Right? Because can somebody still be a stranger even though you've known them online for 5, 6 years?
Yeah.
Are they necessarily who they say they are?
No.
Not necessarily. Right? And I'll give you an example. And actually one that just happened this week. We had some inappropriate messaging going on through Snapchat between two youth. A little bit older than you, maybe a couple of years, not much. Okay? One of the messages came from a person that had used a nickname. It wasn't an actual name, like Joe Smith. It was like a nickname. Okay? So, the message got sent. People saw the message and got concerned because it was really inappropriate. So, the police, myself, had a look at these messages. And I talked to one of the students who was supposedly a friend of this person that had sent the message. And I said, and he was just young, he was probably about a year older than you guys. I said, okay, do you know who this person is? Yep, his name is this. Okay, told me a name. I said, okay, how old is he? 13. I said, well, how do you know? Well, I saw a picture of him. I said, Saw a picture of him. Yeah, he's a white kid, red hair, freckles. I'm like, okay, where does he live? United States. He said, United States? How long have you known him for? Well, 5, 6 years. Where'd you meet him? Through an online game. I said, so you don't actually know that that kid is who he says he is. Could that person with the nickname be anybody, anywhere on this entire planet? Yes. And chances are, it is. Random dude living in random USA, maybe even random Australia, right? When you think you know somebody, ask yourself how you think you know them. If you do not know them and they're on your group chat, seriously consider getting them off of that chat or leaving the chat. Because nothing good can come of that.
Probably he gave himself a nickname because he didn't want to get caught.
Absolutely.
He didn't want people to find out that it was him.
Absolutely. Do you think somebody that's on the internet for inappropriate purposes would use their real names?
No.
Their real identities? Chances are not. So, I just want you guys to think about that. It does happen.
When I was little, I'm gonna be random people, and then later on when I watched random page, I deleted them. I deleted all of the friends that I didn't know that we didn't realize. Now I only have my friends that I know.
Yeah, had to start from scratch, right? Yeah. All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about Snapchat, there's also, because I mean, even if you guys aren't using that app right now, chances are you maybe become familiar with it in the next couple of years. There's a feature on Snapchat called Snap Map. Anybody heard of that?
No.
It's pretty cool. You can look at the map. You can see where, you know, your friend is chatting from down the street, corner of Dogwood and 2nd Ave. Oh, they're at 7-Eleven. Oh, right on. Cool. When does that become dangerous?
When people
Hands up.
When you don't know them.
When you don't know them.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
Perfect. Yeah. Exactly why it becomes dangerous. Does anybody know, if you know about that app, did you know that there's a way that you can actually turn off that location thing on the map? It's called ghost mode. Did you know that? So really, really consider that if you're, I mean, it's you and your best friend that are communicating, you're not really going to have to worry about it, right? But if you've got a group chat out there with 50, 60, 80 people on it, I really, really encourage you to look at that list of people and make sure that you actually want those people to know where you are and what you're doing, right? So think about that. So we've talked about Snapchat. What other apps are out there that possibly have some inappropriate content? You mentioned one already. Here.
Instagram.
Instagram. What sort of inappropriate things?
People saying bad things.
Yeah. So mean verbal stuff. What else?
Weird pictures.
Weird pictures, right? That aren't meant for anybody's eyes, let alone little people's, right?
That random people are taking pictures of different people that don't want pictures taken of them supposed to.
That's an interesting point. So, do you think that happens a lot?
Yep.
Yeah.
Photos get taken, they get uploaded to a certain website, and that person has no idea really necessarily that the photo is even out there. What should be done if you want to post a picture of somebody on your Instagram account? What should you do? Ask them their permission. You have to. You have to do that. If you post something without their knowledge or permission, not okay. Yeah. So really important to know that.
There's also TikTok.
TikTok.
Yeah.
So I don't use TikTok. I know a little bit about it because I have some friends that use TikTok. But one thing I do know about TikTok is that it's got some random things that pop up from time to time, right? Right? And most of the videos are really short videos. I think, what are they, less than 30 seconds-ish?
Like a minute, 30 minutes.
Oh, less than a minute? Okay, so, I mean, there can be a lot of inappropriate stuff in a minute, right? But there's also these random pop-ups, right? So, TikTok, what age do you think you gotta be to use TikTok?
14.
I think it was like 14 or 17.
14 plus.
Again, with parental consent and knowledge, right?
We had a talk about how old you have to be to use TikTok with Miss Smith last year.
Oh,
We were together in the gym.
yeah, okay, and what did you learn, do you remember?
We learned that it's like 13 to 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people last year were doing bad stuff on TikTok, their kids in the school and stuff.
Oh, really? Like messaging, going back and forth, messaging?
Miss Smith had to take away somebody's phone last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because they were making TikToks before school when they weren't supposed to,
Okay.
and having a whole bunch of people gathering around,
And putting them on there.
and a lot of their parents didn't like that because
Ah.
they were videos.
Oh, interesting. So what's dangerous about that? What was the big concern?
There's people taking reviews of other people.
Ah, okay. Without their permission necessarily? Yeah, okay, makes sense.
Last year, I'm not gonna name anyone, but they would take inappropriate TikToks and send it on other things like Office. They'd send a video of something inappropriate,
Oh.
and then since I have TikTok, I got one of those inappropriate videos.
Oh, I see. Oh, on a different platform.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah. So that leads us kind of what we're going to talk about next. Go ahead.
I just have one more thing to say about that
Yeah.
thing. The other thing that we good about it is that if they don't have their ghost mode turned on, then they would be able to find out what school you go to.
Yeah, that's possible,
You could
right?
also find out where they live.
Yeah, yeah, and that's entirely possible, right? Obviously with the map, you can know, I mean, yeah, you can find out probably where their house is, right? So it leads us into a little bit of, and this might be a little basic, but what do you think you should share over the internet as far as your personal information goes?
Well, I know a way you could find out if somebody you know. You could ask them a question that only your phone knows the answer to.
Right. You mean if you were maybe messaging with somebody that you weren't quite sure? Yeah, you could do a test question kind of thing? Yeah. Do you think it's okay to give out your full name,
No.
your age,
No.
your address,
No.
phone number,
No.
Instagram account,
No.
passwords?
No.
All right. That was a lot of no's. All right. So that's really important to know. Don't share any of that information online. I know it can be tough. I know it's hard. Maybe first names is fine. Maybe even your first and last name during, in some instances is fine, right? What about the best friend you've had since kindergarten? Absolute best friend in the world. Trust them 100%. Do you give them your Instagram password?
No.
How come?
Because they could give it to someone else.
Yep. Any other reasons?
Never had Instagram.
Because if somebody else figured out their password, they can take the other ones and like try and send people in inappropriate things.
Right. What potentially could happen if somebody has access to your username and your password on your Instagram? What potentially could happen?
They could change it and you could log back in.
Absolutely. And then what could they do with the account?
Post inappropriate stuff and
Post
then you could get
anything they wanted, right? And it would all be under your name. So never ever share that password and username.
And if they logged onto your account, then made it so you can't log in, all your friends would think that it was you, so then you could ask questions that would be cool.
Absolutely. Just think, right? If you had 50 friends on that,
Yeah.
yeah. What would you do if you were on one of those social media platforms, let's say Instagram, and somebody sent you an inappropriate message, and it was somebody you didn't know, what would you do? First thing.
Block them.
Block them. Okay? Even before you block them, what would you do? Back row.
Me?
Yep.
I'd report them and then block them.
Report them to who?
I don't know. Like, you can report stuff, like on the thing.
Yep.
Go
To
in
the
top
company
and
who made the-
report.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So each platform has their actual security division, right? Right. Even before you reported them to the platform, and even before you blocked them, what would you do?
You could tell your parents or somebody you with.
Tell a parent, tell a trusted adult. Number one thing you do. Right? Then they can guide you through what you need to do after.
I would delete the app.
Delete the app entirely.
That's what I was gonna say.
You know what? And some people have had to do that because overall, if that app and that whatever it is or that game, if that's causing you more stress than enjoyment you're getting out of it, it's time to delete it. Take a break from it, delete it. If you wanted to in a few months or a year, maybe you go back to it, but maybe not. Always ask yourself, is this causing me more stress, more anxiety than the enjoyment I'm getting out of it?
What's Instagram?
What's Instagram? Yeah, good question. So Instagram is a social media platform where you can share conversations and photographs with people you know.
Technically, you don't.
It's a way to talk to one another digitally. Right? Question?
There's this game and it gives me stress but it's not because of like it's the game. It's called Minecraft and it's a single player game, but it can be multiplayer.
Yes.
But it's a single player game and there's zombies and stuff, and that's what stresses me out.
Sounds pretty stressful. Zombies, oh man. All right. All right. So, we're going to wrap things up a little bit here, a few more minutes. The one thing I want to stress to you guys, because every day we're getting more and more technological, right? Every day. Things are changing all the time, it's fast-paced, we want information right now, right now, right now. Sometimes you need to take a step back, right? If you want to build a friendship with somebody, what's the best way to do that? Physically. With physical connection, as in like be physically present, right? Yeah, actual conversation with someone, right? Face-to-face conversation. Do you think that it's entirely possible to know somebody 100% if you never ever meet them in person?
No.
Absolutely no. What do you get out of being, what's the difference? If you're face-to-face with somebody, what is something you get out of that, you know, other than that you would never get if you were just friends digitally?
You could never get their age because you haven't seen.
Yeah? You might not
Yeah, you
know
can
their
say
age.
anything.
Yeah.
You can say you're a
Yeah.
lesbian when you're 20 years old.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Have you guys learned about communication? A little bit? There's two types of communication. Right? Verbal and
Online.
actions, nonverbal, right? They say that 90% of the way you communicate is done nonverbally. So not even with what you say, but it's how you say it and the things you do. People read your body language, right? You ever get that digitally? Through a text message? No.
Yeah.
So, think about that.
Sort of.
Take a step back. You think you sort of get it?
Well, no, that's not. You can sort of use them expressions with like texting and stuff
Yes.
because of the
Emojis? Yeah, that's true. The happy face or the sunglasses. Yeah, exactly. So, think about that. The way you want to connect with people, the way you build actual true relationships is face-to-face conversations. Act like, you know, you're interested in what that person is saying. Show your listening skills, and most of all, be kind, responsible, and respectful. Right?
Hi, just a quick question before we're wrapping up a little bit. Do you mind walking us through some of the real life consequences if you are unfortunately not following the rules of social media, or you're, you know, bullying someone, or you're
Right.
antagonizing someone?
Yeah, sure. So if you ever find yourself in a conversation with somebody and it's inappropriate, or it's deemed to be a bullying or harassing, cyberbullying in some way, shape, or form, somebody's making you feel bad, you're making somebody else feel bad just by the note of the conversation, chances are you're going to get into a little bit of hot water, right? You potentially even could be spoken to by a police officer. And if it gets bad enough, there might be a criminal investigation into that. So cyberbullying, things like that, is what we in the police world call harassment. And if it continues, if it's a pattern of behavior over a continued period of time, legally, you could be charged with that offense. So think about that as you're typing, right? You're typing messages. Make sure that they're kind, responsible, respectful, right? Because every time you keystroke something, there's a record of it, right? So always make sure you're putting positive things out there and not getting tied up into the negative stuff. And if you feel like you're at the other end of harassing comments or inappropriate photos and messages, tell a trusted adult.
Sometimes what will happen is people will say delete these messages as well, because they don't want further to happen, because they know they never go on.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of the dangers of some of those apps like Snapchat, when things are only temporarily available. Yeah, it makes it difficult.
Well, you just don't delete them.
They delete on their own. Yeah, and the photos, and if you take a screenshot, it notifies the sender that the screenshot was actually taken. So always something to keep in mind. And that's kind of what makes some of those apps like Snapchat a little more dangerous than others. So just very, very good if you think about that.
I have two things to say. One of them is a question. Does video chatting count as face-to-face? Because you see that.
Yes, it counts. Is it as good as being physically present?
No. Because you can video chat
But
on
yes.
Messenger, and Messenger,
Yeah.
Messenger can, or just cancel.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, have you ever met that person in real life, in person? And if the answer is yes, you can say, yeah, that's the same person, right? Then that's fine. But if you've never actually met the other person, you really don't know their identity, even if they're talking to you on video. They could be anywhere, right? So, something to be cautious of. Okay, I think we got time for one more question.
A few months ago, there's this person that joined my Snapchat, and I asked my mom if I knew this person, and she said I did, but I forgot that I knew them.
And that can happen, right? Yeah, so that's great that you were able to check it out, right, and make sure you did the exact right thing. Absolutely. All right, I think we better wrap it up, because we'll talk to the other grade 4, 5 class.